Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. This is Bill Vick, business here in Sonoma County, and I'm very privileged this morning to have two experts in ways to make you more productive and safer and use your own technology. Visage is a peer network, and we have magnificent speakers around the country who can solve problems for us, bring new insights, and there's nothing in my mind more challenging today than technology. I hear AI, I have my members, curating it, talking about it. And yet at the same time, I sometimes have difficulty just looking at my calendar, okay? Or have my calendar on my phone connect with my calendar on my computer and vice versa. And then of course, we always get the new, I would say, improvements, upgrades. Well, the upgrade generally to me means that what you used to be able to use, you're not going to be able to use it the same way anymore. And I said, but I liked it the old way. But anyway, I'm very, very privileged to have Jan Lehman and Zach Mizell. And Jan, CTC Productivity, I know that you have an extensive background and you've spoken to my group and about how to save time, be more efficient. And the thing that really amazes me is that your ability to say, we can use the technology you've already paid for. And Zach, you have the ability at Wooden Spoon, a perfect name for a technology company, okay? Wooden Spoon, to show how to integrate a lot of that together, how to use it more effectively, and more importantly, these days, is how to be safe from it. So we're looking forward to discussion with you two guys. So Jan, we'll start off with you. What is CTC Productivity?
Yeah, so we're a productivity company. So we help companies run more efficiently, and we have lots of different levers we can pull, anywhere from doing one-on-one coaching to process improvement work or helping leverage Microsoft 365. But the end game is really helping companies run as efficiently as possible. We always say we help clients maximize their 3 T's: time, talent, and technology. So, and our ultimate goal is to create a culture of productivity within an organization. So I firmly believe an individual can never be as fully productive as they want to be unless leadership really embraces concepts and ideas and gets everybody to empower, and they role model it and empower people to follow these new rules, these new tools, et cetera. That's when you're going to get the exponential benefits of productivity.
Jan, do you often find that people have, you're an expert in Microsoft 365 and how to use that? I find that I sometimes use Microsoft a little bit, or maybe I use OneNote, or I jump back and forth. Do you find that members, your clients, when you speak with them, that sometimes happens, that they'll be on this platform and say, well, this is a calendar that works here. And then they're on another platform, well, that calendar works there, and they think that they're getting the same thing. Oftentimes they're not.
Yeah, I think what we see is many employees within a company are out kind of hearing about technology and going, hey, here's a great tool for this, and they bring it in. And so you end up with all these disparate systems. And nobody is really paying attention to the fact that if you just use your current, especially if you're a Microsoft shop, if you use the current technology that you're already paying for, it's really tightly integrated and it meets the same needs. It's just not so apparent. Maybe they aren't advertising the features as much. And so individuals in a company aren't aware of it. So don't you agree, Zach? You're kind of seeing your clients having a lot of disparate systems in addition to being a Microsoft shop?
People go out and do their own thing. I've never seen that, Jan.
I love it. I love it. But they do, they find the tool they want, right? Or they come from another company. And the worst is when we've got companies that are half Microsoft and half Google, because somebody came from Google and brought some of those. Like, that is definitely not one of the best environments from a technology space.
I raised my hand. I live that life. And thank God I met Zach Mizell. He sat down with me in about 45 minutes, made my life much better, I would say, Zach. Okay.
Perfect.
And Jan did a wonderful job speaking to my group for productivity. Tell the audience a little bit about your background.
Yeah, well, let's see. So I studied in school exactly what I do now. So I went to Indiana. In the business school, I studied technology and process improvement, and I got a second degree in psychology. So everything I do now is related to that schooling. Zach's laughing because he knows the psychology is the secret sauce, right? You can't change habits. You can't get people to adopt software if you don't know, can't get in their head and help them figure out how to understand the value and how to change habits. So from there, went to work for very large companies, Accenture, which was Anderson Consulting at the time, and then went on to work for Kraft Foods and then started my own business. So I'm very blessed. I've been in the same swim lane my whole career, and I just love it.
Well, I'm so very pleased to know you. I really love the way you present. We're going to have you come back to our group again this year. Tell us what CTC stands for.
Create the culture, because it's all about getting leaders to buy into the concepts and ideas. And if they don't role model and empower people to follow these productivity ideas, you're going to have pockets of productivity. So you're just not going to get the exponential gain that a CEO is looking for.
You know, I could see that as a real challenge for CEOs today. The fact that you might have one system with your C-suite, and yet you have employees out there using part of your system and part of their own system. And oftentimes they're not on the same page at all, thinking that they are.
Yeah, very much.
Zach, tell us about yourself, and let's start with the wooden spoon.
Well, the name has absolutely nothing to do with technology. As it turns out, we had the domain name prior to starting the business, and we were trying to figure out what to call it. Of course, I'm going through all these possible really cool technical names, and my wife says, "Well, why don't we call it Wooden Spoon?" And of course, I say, "Well, that's a terrible idea. How does that relate?" She says, don't worry. We're going to incorporate after the first of the year. This is back 20 years ago. We can call it anything you want. We can call it anything you want after we incorporate.
I'm like, exactly. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I'm like, well,
yeah, GoDaddy
great.
will love whatever name you pick.
Exactly. So 2 months later, it was already too late. People already knew me as the Wooden Spoon guy. So it stuck. And it's kind of cool because it's, you think about a wooden spoon. It's a really fundamental, simple tool. And that's really what we try to do.
I mean, a really memorable name like NVIDIA or Xerox or something.
Right.
Nobody would remember those names.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your background, how you got into, and specifically a little bit more about your work, how you help CEOs, how you help, C-suite individuals do better.
Sure. Well, interestingly, I'm also in the same swim lane. I have a degree in management information systems from the University of Arizona. Go Cats!
Go Hoosiers!
Right. And I also had I went to work for IBM out of school and worked for an organization that became IBM Global Services. So after a couple of iterations, couple of jobs after that, I decided to start my own company. The question was what to do. And it seemed like it was pretty obvious. IT infrastructure, it kind of is in my blood. I've been doing it for over 30 years. And the idea is creating a stable platform for businesses so that they can operate all of the rest of their IT on top of it. And that's what we do, whether you're talking about on-premise systems, cloud-based systems, security, remote access, all of that stuff. That's stuff that usually internal IT departments don't have the skills to do, especially in smaller businesses. And so what we can do is we can come in, make that very, very easy for businesses, and then they can build what they want on top using the kinds of systems that Jan provides and consults on, or other kinds of productivity systems that may be important to them.
When I look at information technology and how over the last 30 years, Zach, that has changed and morphed. And there's nothing probably more top of mind lately, certainly in the last 5 years, and very particularly in the last 3 years, of security around systems. Systems are so mobile. I can take this laptop and I can go anywhere with it, and then all of my data comes with me. So when you're looking at systems for security and safety, I think about the cloud, then I think about in-office systems where people have their own servers and so forth. What is your advice there? What do you think makes the most sense? And again, frugality is part of it, but ability to use.
Well, I think, as Jan was saying, from the application side, on the system side, it really depends on what businesses use. And from my perspective, certainly in the infrastructure side of the industry, things are absolutely moving to the cloud. And it creates a lot of opportunity. It creates a lot of flexibility. It gives people the ability to be productive from anywhere, as you've said, but it creates risk. And so what my company does specifically is help people reduce the risk, regardless of which way they decide to go. They want to do on-prem systems. There are certain kinds of things that you have to do to keep them safe. If you're going to the cloud, there are certain kinds of things you have to keep them safe. And then there's kind of an overlap in that Venn diagram about things that everybody needs to do. And so what we can do is we can consult with companies and help them decide what really makes the most sense for them. What things can they put in place? And I tease, right? I say, yeah, we're the people, we talk about productivity and safety and security. And what we actually do is make people less productive, which is there's a modicum of truth to that when you talk about, having to do multi-factor authentication or the hoops that you have to have people jump through. But it's not really an option anymore. And so what we're trying to do is help the executives. Jan talks about creating the culture with respect to productivity. We're trying to create that culture from the standpoint of security.
And that's
I totally agree. You do slow us down a little bit, but it's for very good reason. When we ever get clients up on Microsoft 365, maybe coming from Google or something, we're always like, you need an MSP or internal IT that understands the security, the infrastructure, all of that. So I'm so thankful that you all exist.
It's always nice to hear people say that they're thankful. I was talking with the CEO the other day, Bill, who we're going through a pretty major system transition for them. We're taking them to the cloud, and I asked him kind of point blank, I'm like, are you happy with what's going on? And it was kind of funny. His response was, well, no, IT doesn't make me happy ever. Like, oh, okay, which is a good thing to know, right? Like we're generally not going to, well, let me put it this way. If we prevent a cyber attack that prevents a business from going out of business, then I would think that they may not be jumping for joy that they had a cyber attack, but that they're happy that they're in business.
Let's put it at a very minimum, relieved. Right. And I was listening to CNBC this morning in Bloomberg, and two major corporations, MGM Grand just got hacked. Okay, Clorox
big time
got hacked. And one is going to pay, the other one's not going to pay. The federal government at some point to shut these things off will say, we're not going to allow anyone to pay any kind of ransom and so forth. So, I mean, you're really at the mercy of your own skills and abilities and the experts like yourselves to run your IT and make it work and functional. One question I have, tell me, Zach, what is the cloud?
What is the cloud? It's computers someplace else.
That's what I thought. I can envision probably a large, several large buildings in San Francisco and San Jose and throughout the area, very secure, safe buildings filled with nothing but computers. And that's your cloud.
Yep, it's computers in a data center typically, but be advised, while they're typically in data centers, they aren't necessarily. They could be in a business in an office park. That business is offering cloud-based services. This is going back to security, Bill. One of the things that's really, really, really important is business owners need to understand who's actually delivering the services. There is a security compliance auditing standard called SOC 2 or SOC 3, and any big reputable companies who are doing hosting in the cloud are going to have that SOC 2 or SOC 3 certification. So if you're dealing with a company who's providing you cloud-based services and they don't have that, beware. Caveat emptor, big time.
Interesting. There's so much to learn. Now, Jan, back to you. I know that when you spoke to my group, you talked about increasing productivity, and you used a large law firm as an example. Tell the group, the audience, a little bit about how you made that change for them, and then the concept of focus time.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example. So my book, which shameless plug, where is it? Right there, is all about this particular client that I use in my storyline in my presentation. And he's exactly the kind of client we want to partner with, because he came into it concerned about burnout for his employees. And as we got in and focused on productivity tips and ideas, I encouraged him to really embrace these concepts, again, role model them, make them part of your culture. And it's exactly what he did. And ultimately, we ended up, they're 30% more efficient. So a 50-person law firm is 30% more efficient. And on top of that, employee engagement went up. And what gets even better is I had my book signing party in February of this year, and it's been about probably somewhere between 4 to 6 years we've stopped working with them on the bigger initiative. I still coached attorneys there. But he said in the book panel discussion, what's this 4 to 6 years later, that the entire firm is still about 30% more efficient. And I give him the credit. Again, I can come in and diagnose what the root issue is. I can suggest technology changes, time management changes, leadership changes to the way they lead their people. But it's up to the leaders to really embrace it and make it part of their culture. So, yeah.
Tell the audience the name of your book. I've read it.
Yeah, work smart, do more. So the whole concept is work smart. So we're going to teach you how to work efficiently to get more time back in your day. And then the do more part is do what you want with it. If you want to sell more widgets, if you want to spend time with your family, and the ultimate return is happiness, because you'll have the time back to do what you really want to do every day.
The thing I love about your presentation about work smart, do more is the time saved.
Yes.
Time saved. Because the CEOs I know, a lot of them are micromanagers by default. Okay.
Yeah.
Got to get it done. And if you have the technology, the right people in place, and you have the systems in place, and you focus your efforts, you do create time, and you don't make yourself crazy like the squirrel running around with a hamster on the wheel, running faster and faster, not getting anywhere, but thinking that effort is getting them somewhere. So it is critically important. So, and that was a pretty good sized law firm. How many attorneys they have?
Yeah, it was a 50-person law firm.
50-person law firm.
When we started. They're bigger now.
Okay, fantastic. I love it.
And Billy, so you said you wanted me to clarify focus time. Do you want me to answer that one?
Please, yeah. Focus time was really critical.
Yeah, focus time tends to be the one productivity hack that we provide that I feel every client brings up years later. And it's really time blocking on steroids. So a lot of people know the concept of, block your time to work on a certain project or task. What focus time is it's really understanding the time of day when your brain is the sharpest, when you can do your best work. You're typically 4 times more productive. So I'm a morning person. 65% of the population are morning people. And it would be really dumb for us to be attending a meeting where we didn't need to be super focused during the morning. Right. It would be dumb for me to be responding to emails in the morning. Like, it'd be better for me to be doing my most complicated thinking. And when people start to realize they need to not just block time, but really figure out, the time of day to block, and to have good planning skills around that, so they know as soon as that time hits, they know exactly what their number one priority is and what they're going to do, so they can jump right in. That's really focus time compared with something we call regroup and plan. A lot of people don't know how to plan and prioritize, and they tend to just get on email because it's an easy place to hang out all day. And that
I believe people think that once they communicate with someone else, email, text message, whatever, that they're being productive.
And they're
doing my job.
Yeah, they feel like they're being productive, but they're not typically doing their most important work. So it's a balance. Like, you need to make sure you're carving out time to do your most important work. But most leaders, managers, when they're responding to emails, are helping move the ball along for somebody else. And you just can kind of hang out there and think you're being productive. But again, you're helping other people. Typically, again, it needs to be a balance. You can't ignore your team, but we don't typically carve out time to do our most important work. And most of us are completely overworked right now. So.
Truly. And Jan, do you have like a survey you send to your potential clients, so things or questions to ask and so forth?
Yeah, we do. We send, so if we do a coaching session or a training session, anything like that, we send a 1-minute survey. It's very subjective. 2 quantitative questions, 2 qualitative. First one, quantitative, is, do you have more time back in your day? I'm happy to report, on average, we deliver a 10% bump in productivity, which sounds small. Like, when I get a 10% off at the store, I'm like, that's so puny. But 10% time back in your day annualized is giving somebody more than a month back in a year. Second question is, what are you doing with that time? If you're in a revenue generating role, like someone who's in a professional service firm and you bill, or you're a salesperson, are you increasing revenue? And if you're in an operational role, are you decreasing cost? Again, seeing some pretty amazing numbers there, up to, like, one client was $31,000 more a month billable because she was focusing on her time more appropriately, the last two questions are my favorite, and those have to do with employee engagement and job satisfaction. And what we're seeing there are massively huge numbers where that we had a couple of survey people last month that were 31% increase in job satisfaction. We've had people in the past that have been 81 to 100%, because when you can finally get your most important work done and leave work when you want, like then you're happy at work, right? But when you have to work nights and weekends, so we just kind of have it backwards. So yeah, that 1 minute survey has been really powerful for collecting data for us.
Excellent. I love it. And Zach, I introduced you to a CEO, and what would you say to him? What's the first thing that they need to do to take most advantage of your services? What would you say is your survey? How do you get them started?
I mean, it really is a series of questions, and usually it's a series of questions around risk management. What's most important to them? What are their company jewels? What are they trying to protect? And how are they accessing them? Where do they access them from? What do they need to be like? What do they need to do in order to be most productive? And it's really interesting because there are still businesses that are based largely in offices and working off traditional networks that really haven't changed much in the last 20 years. And then there are businesses like my own, like many that I know of, that are very distributed, that have employees all over the place. And so then the question becomes, how do you manage their workflow? How do you manage your company assets and make sure that they're protected properly? And so that's usually that's the very first entry point, because from there it's going to branch out into, all right, based on what you have, what are the appropriate methods to protect all those assets? And there may be different methods for different assets within the same company. So there really isn't a one size fits all. Now, while we're predominantly a Microsoft shop, and we deal with the Microsoft Cloud and Microsoft 365 quite a bit, there still can be different ways that those things from an infrastructure perspective, there are different ways that those can be implemented. And so much like Jan is dealing in large measure with Microsoft 365 and all of the tools that are kind of what I would call user facing in that environment, there are probably as many in the Microsoft environment that users will never see, but that have to be configured in the background correctly in order for Microsoft 365 to work correctly and securely. So those are the kinds of audits that we do with clients. What do you have? What other vendors do you use? We talked earlier in the conversation about people going out and kind of cowboying it. Oh, I really like this tool. I'm going to go buy Monday or Asana or what have you. And all of a sudden you have company data in a system that you didn't even know. And so how do you protect those things or reel that back in?
It's the distributed, the super risky aspect that all information is so portable, and it can go from this device to that, or go to a little UBS stick, whatever. Okay. And you walk out the door with it. I mean, I think I've seen spy movies where that happens. They click it in and walk out.
Exactly.
There's a nuclear war. So yeah, Zach, go ahead. You had another thought I could say.
Well, there was one other thing. We talked a little bit about culture earlier, and that's one of the other things I try to assess when I'm talking to executives is what's their willingness to really implement a security-based culture within their business. Because I'll tell you, this may be something that's not obvious to other business owners. When a technology service provider like me engages with another business, we're actually assuming some of their risk. And so one of my jobs is to decide, hey, is this potential client worth the risk? And part of that is going to be their willingness to put, like the easiest thing to put into place is a security awareness training program that helps them instill a culture of security in their business top down. And everybody's got to be willing to participate in that. So it's absolutely key. If I encounter a business owner who really has zero interest, who's going to resist everything that we recommend, it's probably just not a good fit for us.
Exactly. And I know that your system provides, you have as part of your program, the ability to do phishing and so forth. You'll reach out to your clients and find out if they go for the bait.
Right.
Go back to the owner and say, hey, look, here's your HR department. Here's what they did. Here's what they told us. And they fell for the phishing.
That's
Yep,
so smart. That is just
mm-hmm.
so, we are the weakest link, right? We're the weakest link. You guys are like the
Totally.
unsung heroes. Like, we probably don't know half the stuff that you're saving us from because you're never telling us, right? And so, yeah, I'm thrilled that you guys are doing the phishing, and it keeps insurance costs down too, right? For your clients, if they're doing
Well,
that.
it's pretty interesting these days. You know, the companies that offer cyber insurance, and by the way, much like in the state of California, where the entire insurance industry is in disarray, it seems like the
Unbelievable.
cyber insurance industry, nationwide and internationally, is getting stricter and stricter and stricter. And so things that in the past have been optional, you get your cyber insurance renewal questionnaire, and it has all those questions that you don't know how to answer, and you ask us to help with, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the answers to those, in my belief is, in the not too distant future, if you answer no to some of those, the cyber carrier is going to go, wow, thanks, but no thanks. They're going to be compulsory.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Now, you go into a meeting, and what question would you ask Jan? Okay, prior to you're a CEO, okay, running
Oh,
your
I feel like
business.
it's like the
You are.
dating game or something.
Ooh.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
right.
there we go. It is a great idea, Jan. Okay.
So I'm sorry, you're
What
asking
question?
you're asking me. I'm going to a meeting
Yeah,
with
I'm
Jan. What
asking you
question
to
do I
ask
ask?
Dan. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's like
Um,
if I'm a client of his, potential client of his.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
well, I mean, the first question I'm going to want to understand is, after the kind of getting the gist of your business, where are your people? How do they work?
Yeah. So where are they located and what
Yeah,
computers are they
where are they
using? All
physically
that kind of
located?
stuff.
Are they working
Yeah,
from offices? Are they working from home? Are they working from the road? What do they do?
that's a good question.
Mhm.
I don't need to answer. I don't think, do I?
No, you don't. Yeah. Okay. All right. And Zach, what question would you ask of Jan? You're going to present her as part of your team to a group of CEOs at a conference. And what question would come to mind to ask Jan?
Well, so interesting. So I actually I'm in a nationwide. Actually, it's an international organization, that we meet 4 times a year in person. And the question I had for Jan, and it's an actual question, was, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to speak to my organization? It sounds like what you do has a ton of
Yeah.
value. Would you be willing to come and talk to my peers?"
Yeah. Yeah. You were great. You're so nice to offer to ask me, and I've connected with those folks. So thank you.
You're
It
welcome.
is.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time here together, but I would say, what are the top takeaways, Jan, you'd like to have for our audience here, for CEOs and people considering Vistage and peer organizations? So, what would be your top one or two takeaway thoughts?
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, join Vistage, no question. I'm not only a Vistage speaker, I'm a Vistage member, and I get significant value from it. Even when I'm coaching CEOs or leaders, I always tell them they should be in a peer group, because what I'm going to help them with is very different than the ideas they can bounce off their peer group. So 100% explore Vistage if you're, look for it, even if you weren't considering a peer group. And that's a part of a piece of advice that I see a lot is I feel like there's so much that's shifted in the software space. So again, when I was growing up and working at, let's say, Kraft Foods, we would develop software to solve business issues for functional areas. And with software as a service, where you can buy software on the shelf, companies don't need people to develop software anymore, right? That makes sense. Get rid of that. But they've lost the person in the organization that really is the one connecting the dots between, we've got a business issue and we need some technology to solve it. So I feel like organizational charts should be looked at within corporations to really make sure they've got somebody that they don't have to be an expert at what Zach does or what I do, but they need to know enough to know that we've got this business issue and we need to find software that's going to help solve it. And so it's a big gap in a lot of organizations. So when I'm presenting to Vistage groups, it's often a very interesting conversation when I bring this up, because many of them haven't thought of it. They don't have the right resource, and they take that as an action item for them when they leave.
Right. Or if they have an IT company, they think the IT company is going to do that for them.
Yeah, Zach,
And
explain that. Sorry, go ahead. I'd be curious your perspective on that.
well, we have a client that they're a large CPA firm, and I had a very interesting conversation with the firm administrator, who said to me, She said, the partners seem to be under the assumption that you're the CTO or the CIO of the organization. And she goes, I just don't see it. And it kind of put me back on my heels a little bit. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I asked her to explain like what it was that she meant. And she basically said exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Right. They're looking for somebody who understands their workflow, understands their business, and can recommend specific software that for the to do tax planning, or to do the tax returns, or to do audit, whatever it may be. And that's, for most companies like mine, that's not our bailiwick. There are larger managed IT service providers out there, I'm sure, who have staff inside who do those kinds of things. But for most of the companies like mine, we're 10 to 20 people in our companies. It's not big enough to provide that level of consulting. And so the assumption, I would absolutely echo what you said. They need to find somebody. It may even be somebody that they have to have inside their organization who really understands the workflow, what they want to have done, and can help them select the right software to do it. I couldn't agree with you more.
And I do think it needs to be somebody in their organization. It's the traditional CIO role has shifted significantly. It's no longer a cost center. It's now this strategic weapon to be leveraged. And that's where, I think in the Vistage meetings where I present and I'm talking about, here's some stuff you can do with software you've had for 20 years. Everybody's like, what? I can do what with that? Because no one's ever really explored it. So
it's amazing how the ability to use technology has in many ways not been properly explained to employers and employees, how it is used, and then how it works together. And there's this cloud of assumptions. Well, I guess it does all this. I guess it does all that. No, it only does this. And that's part of, I would say, chief investment officer or chief technology officer, CTOs, to make sure that everybody understands what you have, how you use it, and then its limitations as well.
Big time. So the thing that the kind of my parting words, Bill, in answer to the question that I'm assuming that you're just about to ask me, so I'm going to go ahead and answer it anyway.
I knew you were a very smart man,
is for businesses that are selecting a technology service provider, it's not just about the technology. It really isn't about the technology. You've got to find a firm that you feel like you can work with well, that's going to invest the time to understand your business so that they can make good recommendations to you, and also understand where the boundaries and where the limitations are. Because, like we were talking about earlier, yes, we configure 365 so that it will work securely, but we don't do nearly the depth of things that Jan's firm does. Not even close. And so, I'll just say I'm thrilled through this forum to have met Jan, because I already know there's so many people that I can refer her to who she's going to be able to make a big difference in their business, where I want to. God, I'd love to be able to do that, but that's just not our skill set. So when you're interviewing an MSP, make sure it's a good match for you culturally, not just from a technology perspective.
Hey, and Zach, I'll echo that too. We love MSPs that understand where their skill set is, what their swim lane is, and often we will come into companies and they've been set up totally wrong, because the MSP was trying to figure out how to set up Microsoft 365. So it's fabulous, where your strength is and what you can do. That's awesome.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
And then you had a little bit of jargon there. MSPs,
managed service providers.
There you go. You guys are so far ahead of me. It's amazing. I'm just
and they're basically the external IT, right, Zach?
External IT. It's a term. It's actually a term that I really don't like, because everybody uses it. Everybody uses it, but it creates this gap, because people think, oh, it's a managed service provider, you're going to manage everything.
Oh, so what do you call your company? You don't call it an MSP.
Man, I
talk about being spoon. It's a wooden spoon.
He goes bang.
Exactly. We're a technology service provider or an IT infrastructure provider. That's usually the way that I refer to our company. But the industry lingo is MSP, and so that's what we use and what people search for typically.
There you go.
Very good point.
I can't thank you two enough. We look forward to seeing you again very soon and get you to speak to our groups. Zach, I know I'll see you at Provisors, and Jen, I'll be seeing you at Vistage. So thank you so very much. And for all of the people in the audience, reach out to Jan and Zach, get your technology needs and your productivity needs taken care of. And contact me, Bill Vick. If you have some more questions, like to learn more about Visage and peer group networks, I'd be happy to do that.